You're listening to Community Voice PHL, an award-winning talk show that informs, engages, and inspires. Tuning in to Community Voice PHL Talk Show, an award-winning talk show that highlights the value-based programs that people are doing all across the country, even right here in the tri-state area. We have engaging interviews with inspiring people who get you involved with building caring and prosperous communities. So Community Voice, a talk show that informs, engages, and inspires. And you're listening to WPPMLP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM. Every week we are excited to bring on a guest that really just, again, provides information and inspiration and just lets us know that there's good still happening out here in our communities all across the nation. We've all heard the expression, or maybe we've been told at one time, if you don't read, you don't lead, or reading is fundamental. And we've come to understand the importance of that in various different capacities, that reading is an essential part of our understanding of life and the understanding of our trajectory to success. But quite often in today's society, we may get to a place where we ask somebody where they get that information from. And it's quite often the phrase, somebody told me, somebody shared this with me. And that's not altogether, not trying to say that, that's the wrong way of getting information. But what I am saying is that it seems to be sometimes we've gotten away from when we ask somebody, where'd you get that from? And they said, I read that. I read that somewhere. I read it in a book. I read it in an article. Sometimes we've gotten so far away from that aspect of getting our information that we don't really understand that to read is to lead, and reading is fundamental. So with that being said, I'm honored to have our guest on the show. Ty Allen Jackson is an award-winning child book author, literacy advocate who captivates others with his motivational speaking and has an honorary doctorate degree. In 2011, he founded Big Head Books, LLC, a literacy organization that is aimed to introduce children to the joys of reading. Ty travels around the country inspiring children and educating adults about the impacts of illiteracy. A 3-time TEDx presenter, he believes that literacy is the foundation for a successful life, and he promotes it with humor and enthusiasm. Ty works as an author and literacy advocate and has earned, again, that doctorate degree of Letter of Humanities from MCLA. And he's also received recognition from Massachusetts Martin Luther King Center of Character and Development, and citations from the governor, the senator, and the House of Representatives from the state of Massachusetts. Ty has been featured on CNN, NBC Nightly News, The Steve Harvey Show, PBS, and countless of other media outlets. And now we're going to be excited to say he can add community voice to that. He is a co-author of the co-founder of the Read or Else movement, and he's also the founder of Danny Dollar Academy. So I'm going to say thank you, and it's a pleasure to have on Community Voice PHL Talk Show, Ty Allen Jackson.
That
Ty,
dude, that sounds like a bad brother you just introduced, man. That dude sounds like that dude.
Well, let's talk about that dude.
So thank you for having me, Jeff.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. So I know I read a little bit about your background and your bio. Give our viewers and listeners a little bit more about who you are, what brought you to this space before we get into our conversation here this evening, I should say.
Sure. First and foremost, before I am anything, I'm a father to 3 of the most amazing human beings I've ever known, and I wear that title proudly as father. Albeit that they're all adults now, 22, 25, and 28. I'm still their dad, but they keep me in line and keep me humble. Outside of that, as mentioned, I'm an author, a promoter of the importance of literacy. My path to becoming an author is maybe a little unorthodox. I've always been an avid reader, but never ever considered writing. Definitely wasn't my path until about 15 years ago, when my son, who was 8 at the time, asked me a question that would change my life. And he simply said, "Dad, can we open up a lemonade stand?" He made $50 in 3 hours selling lemonade. He said, "Dad, what am I going to do with the $50? I said, "I don't know." So I went to my local bookstore to try to find a book to teach my son. about what to do with this $50. And when I got to the bookstore, I noticed there were no books teaching kids about money, and few books teaching that showcased a black positive contemporary protagonist. And so I put those two things together. The name Danny Dollar popped into my head. I went home and started writing. It took me a year to write the story. And after 147 rejections from 147 submissions to
Wow.
agents and publishers, I decided to publish it myself. And to this point, my book has sold over 250,000 copies around the world, teaching kids about the power and the importance of reading.
Wow. So it all started from the lemonade stand to now where you sit today, huh?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So that's a great introduction as to how you got in that trajectory. But talk about your background in terms of what got you into reading, because I did see some of the work that you've done, and you've always been involved with the animation and comics. So was that the introductory for you for reading, and how did that start in your life?
So my mother, despite having me at a very young age, she was only 15 when she had me. She was wise enough, even at that age, to know that books were important.
Hmm.
So we had the books were everywhere. They were in the bathroom, they were in the kitchen, they were in the living room. So no matter and when you're a kid, you gravitate to what you're around. And so I was
Right.
always an avid reader because books were just everywhere in our home. But the primary books that I fell in love with that really opened up my mind and imagination were comic books. I mean, they
Mm.
were, and if you think about comic books, with the mythology of superheroes, well, like
Mhm.
what do superheroes stand for?
Right. Right.
Honor, integrity, strength, courage, wisdom, goodwill, and just being cool. Like who doesn't want those attributes? Like
Right.
we all want those attributes.
Hmm.
So comic books and superheroes and the mythology of such were just paramount to me as a kid, and it really opened up this amazing world that opened up other worlds, and so reading has always been at the foundation of my life. Never writing, like not until my son
Hmm.
asked me that question,
Right.
that I look at writing as a vessel for creativity.
Mhm.
And now behold, 6 books and 400,000 books sold later. Here I am.
Wow. Wow. So now, as I led in my intro, there's the phrase that to read is to lead, and reading is fundamental. When you're out there advocating for reading, what do you see as some of the relevant challenges to have people not as engaged with reading as much as we should be?
Well, there's a few. I think the
Mhm.
primary one is that reading is not a fixture in
Mm.
most homes,
Mhm.
regardless of demographics. Reading is just not a standard.
Mhm.
And so I do speak to parents as well about the importance of reading and why it's necessary for the culture of reading to be as important and prominent as Sunday dinners or movie
Mhm.
nights or whatever traditional fundamental things that happen in the home on a
Mhm.
daily basis. Reading needs to be a part of that narrative,
Mhm.
and not just for entertainment purposes, but also as well educational purposes,
Mhm.
bonding purposes,
Mhm.
and it's the primary way that we entertain ourselves.
Mhm.
But the other thing is that reading is just not on the same fun level when kids
Hmm.
are have options. If you say to a kid, "Hey, you want to play video games? Go to the movies, go on YouTube,
Yeah.
or read a book." Yeah, I mean, that's not a fight that books are going to win most of
Right.
the time.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's
So
more
so we've got to
punitive.
do, so we've got to do a better job of being creative with
Mhm.
books and finding ways, like I said, to introduce them in the home. The
Mhm.
parent is always the primary educator, so if the
Mhm.
parent reads, there's a better chance
Mhm.
of the child reading. If the parent doesn't read, there's a better chance of the child not reading.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
parent has to lead and be the role model in that space, and then find creative ways to be able to engage kids. And one of the simple things I suggest,
Mhm.
in addition to having a standard family reading time together,
Mhm.
is finding a little nook in the house or apartment for your kid. Get a little bean bag, get a little light, and maybe even some extra snacks, and give them 15 minutes. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
that's it. Like
So
like if
so
they want
so
to do more than that, great. But
y
15 minutes, and
so
just
let
let
me
them
let
sit in
me
their little bean bag with their book or magazine and go to town.
Yeah, so let me ask you though, because that's a great idea, and me and my wife, we already have plans, and when the grandchildren come, we don't have any grandchildren yet, but we have
Okay.
plans when the grandchildren come. They're going to be readers, they're going to be lover of all things education. So what you just said is that described part of our house, that little nook, right? But I say that, well, what I want to jump in, and pardon me for interrupting you, because that's not the norm, and that's the challenge sometimes to create that environment where reading is not punitive, where it's
No.
like, why you want to make me sit in the corner and read? I'd rather look at the TV, rather play a video game. So in your space of sharing this with, the many schools you talk to and teachers and educators you talk to across the nation and even parents, right? How do you get them to realize that this is not a bad thing when I'm suggesting this to you?
Well, a few ways. One, positively, is that reading is soul food. Reading
Mhm,
is how we exercise our mind and
mhm,
expand our imagination. When we think of how we're going to raise our kids in a healthy way, we want to provide them with home, with shelter, food, and clothing. Like
mhm,
those are the primary things that we need to give to our children to give them a happy environment.
mhm,
Books and literacy have to be on those, on that level.
mhm,
And so empowering our families to let them know, one, reading is a tremendous amount of fun, and two, it is the greatest tool that they can give their child
mm,
outside of love to make them into thriving adults.
mm,
But the other part, which is maybe the not so fun part, is fear. Like
mm.
really instilling what happens to children who are illiterate. There are cities in this country today, states in this country today, that are determining how many jails they're going to need
Yeah,
based
yeah,
upon the literacy rate of third graders.
yeah,
I want to say that again.
yeah.
They're building jails based on the statistics on how children are reading by the third grade.
Mhm,
Now, if that doesn't tell you the power and the importance of reading, then
mhm,
I don't know what does. And
yeah,
the fact that over 70% of all inmates today cannot read above a third grade level, over 80% of all kids who go through juvie cannot read above a third grade level, the majority of people who are on welfare cannot read above a fourth grade level.
mhm,
Most of the things that ail our country are directly, not indirectly,
mhm,
connected to
mhm,
illiteracy.
hmm,
So if I can't flex the positive aspects on it, I'm gonna flex the negative ones on them
mm,
too, and let them
mm,
know, like, this is real. This isn't my
right,
opinion.
right,
This is in theory. This is fact.
yeah,
So I hit it with the one, then I hit it with the two, and then hopefully,
yeah.
hopefully it settles in.
Yeah, that combination always works, man. When they can't refute the reality, they're then battling against the facts, and the facts can't be changed no matter how they want them to.
Amen.
So yeah, so that's awesome there. Because and I like that because what happens is you're creating a space where there is no option, meaning that like your tagline on your shirt, read or else,
That's right.
right? Read or else. So is that where that kind of came from? That read or else? Because again, there is no really other option. I mean, the success path in life in every capacity, you have to be able to read. Now, before you answer that question about your tagline, I want to just talk a little bit about also the literacy levels in our society, because cross the country and you are got your thumb on the pulse on this. Is the literacy level, can we raise it? Is there a way that we can raise it? Because it's not just the students, right? Because you mentioned some of the adults, and I'm sure it's not just those who are in the correctional system, but how do we raise that level of literacy?
So and this may be an uncomfortable conversation, by not holding our teachers accountable. Like
Mhm,
if the first time a child is being read to is in kindergarten in a circle
mhm,
in school,
mhm,
that's a problem. Like we can't depend upon a public school or a school system, regardless of if it's private or public,
mhm,
to introduce our children to the importance of reading. Our kids should walk into that building for the first time empowered already
mhm,
with the habitual concept of reading a book. And if that's just not happening until they walk through that door, that's a us problem. That's not a teacher problem. It's not an academic problem. It's not an educational problem. That's a social family dynamic problem. So we have to really emphasize to parents that this is as viable as clean water, as healthy food, as good air, as clean clothing. It is on the exact same
mhm.
level. In
Yeah.
fact, it could arguably be more important to emphasize the importance to reading to our kids, because the lessons that they're going to learn through these books are going to carry them for the rest of their
Mhm,
lives.
mhm.
So I think that's one of the things, is that we can't. Teachers should be allies with us in
Yeah.
promoting,
Yeah.
but not the gatekeepers of making sure our children know how to read. No, that's our job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally vibe with that. And we are not saying we anti-teachers or anything like that, but we
Not at
are saying,
all.
yeah, yeah,
Need them, love them.
need them, love them, and they need to be supported in that space. And so what I was also asking though, Ty, is that not just for the students, because what if you come across, and I'm sure you have in your travels, come across adults my age, your age, that, you know, doesn't their literacy level have to be raised as
Right.
well? Because what happens is that's when the fear factor, in my opinion, you're the expert, but help me out here. In my opinion, that's when the fear factor comes in. Because
Of
if
course.
little Jeffrey is reading and I'm his dad, I'm like, I can't help him, so I'm gonna tell him to go pick up a basketball.
Right. Right.
Right?
Well, I feel like there are fewer things that, like the most important educations that happen to our children happen within the home walls and not the school walls. And think
Mm-hmm.
about the humility that it would take for a parent to look their child in the eye and say, you know what, I struggle here.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? Why don't we learn together? Why don't
Mm-hmm.
we have a why don't we go to our local library and figure out
Mm-hmm.
how you and I together can
Mm-hmm.
be able to solve that problem? Think of what that does to child and parent
Mm-hmm.
together, for them to humble themselves and say, you know what? I'm not a good reader. I want to be better because I know it's better for you. You are now not only teaching the child the level and the importance of reading, but how humility can set in and you can humble yourself to say, I'm not strong here.
Mm-hmm.
But together, but this is of such value that I'm willing to be vulnerable and tell you that this is hard for me. But together, you
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
can lift ourselves to a higher level so that we both can be informed, both can be educated,
Mm-hmm.
both be empowered.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, think of what that does to a child,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that makes them feel like, and
Yeah.
how they're going to walk out in their space in the world,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing when something is and being okay with that
Mm-hmm.
and learning because their parent behind them said it's okay to say I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but even more important to say I can.
Yeah, yeah. And so have you had experiences like that when maybe a
Of
parent
course.
or they come back and say, "Hey, yeah, that's got to be like I want to say full circle moment. That's got to be a fulfilling moment, right? When you have that parent that says, "Look, I was struggling with reading, and me and
Yeah.
my child, we combined, and now we're both reading. Now the child loves reading too." Do you have any stories that you could share about experience like that?
I mean, it had, there are so many of them that
Hmm.
that honestly, and and that's where the role of an advocate comes into play,
Hmm. Hmm.
because telling them that I started the show, my mother was 15 when she had me, we
Hmm.
were on welfare, my father was in jail, we I was on welfare until I was a teenager, I had to live with my grandparents. I'm a kid from the hood. I get it. I understand. I understand the plight that a lot of people have gone through. So I'm able to say that I understand where you're coming from. These are the steps I took. These are the steps I could suggest that you take. And when people are that vulnerable to be able to come to you and say, "Listen, I don't know,"
Hmm.
I like to be as courageous as I possibly can be to first of all say thank you
Yeah.
for being that strong, because that's what courage really looks like,
Hmm.
and say, here are the places you can go. Here's your local library or your local literacy center, or
Hmm.
even just your local teacher, and just
Yeah.
being able to say that these are the resources that can help you get to
Hmm.
that next level. But it's also more just about will. It's more
Hmm.
just about courage.
Yeah.
Of finding that inside you. And the resources are here. Your local library is no more than a mile away.
Right. Right.
And they
Yeah.
can provide you with some of the resources to assist you, whether you're dyslexic or illiterate or just want to step up your game.
Yeah.
Like, these institutions are there.
Hmm.
We dismiss them, but the
Hmm.
library is one of the most important and underutilized resources in the world. The
Yeah.
resources they have, I mean, that's what they're there for.
Hmm.
They are literally the mecca of literacy, the mecca of knowledge,
Hmm.
and they are literally just out a mile or two away from where we stand.
Hmm.
And most of us never walk through those doors and then wonder why things are happening in the world they're unfamiliar with or don't
Yeah.
choose to learn about.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, walk into your local library, pull your librarian aside. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, I'm struggling with this. What's a good book for me to start, on a third grade level as an adult to read? And they
Hmm.
will not only help you, but appreciate you
Hmm. Hmm.
for being able to be that vulnerable. Like, yeah, man.
So that's awesome. And I love your passion for it, man, because it definitely is something that needs to be kind of continued, pushed forward. And I'm going to try and work a way to get you into some of these schools over here in Philly, man, because
Come on, man. Let's go, bro.
it's a passion that really needs to be over here in the city as well. So on your Instagram, you mentioned six ways that you can have your child enjoy reading. Do you recall that post?
I recall, yeah, sure, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah. And if you can recall a couple of those ways, if you could share a couple of those ways on the air now, because I thought it was really, really empowering, I should say, when you shared those 6 ways.
Yeah.
So if you can, recall a few of those, I think that'll be great for our viewers and listeners.
So some of them I already mentioned, like
Uh-huh.
the parent has to be the role model. As a parent, you are the primary educator. We are all byproducts of our parents. If
Hmm.
we look at our parents and then look at us, we see the bond and connections, good, bad, or indifferent.
Hmm.
The other thing, the section is going to your local library because it is such an amazing resource. Finding creative ways to engage literacy, not only by like creating the little reading nooks, but when you know the new Batman, Superman, Spider-Man movie, and they're coming out every
Yeah,
single year,
yeah,
go to your local bookstore or your local comic book store, grab
yeah,
a couple copies, bring them home, read them
yeah,
first, and then compare them to the movie when you get there. You
yeah.
know, and there's always this contrast. You could do the same like with the Wizard of Oz,
Hmm.
because if you've ever read the Wizard of Oz, the movie and the book are two
Hmm.
completely
Hmm.
different entities.
Yeah.
They're completely different. So to be able to have that contrast of like the things that happen in the book
Hmm.
versus the things that happen in the movie,
Hmm.
like it's amazing that way as well. And some of the other things that you can do is like be really fun, silly, and creative. Whether you're dressing up like a character when you're reading a book,
Yeah.
or you know what, a little food coloring, and you can make green eggs and ham. You know what I like seriously.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
finding fun, silly, creative ways to introduce the concept of reading.
I got you.
Like these things are not rocket science. They're
Mhm.
just they're just new ways to demonstrate our love for our children.
That's awesome, and I like the way how you shared all those ways, and I'm hoping our listeners and viewers can take some of those nuggets and use that, even if you are reading, just different ways and make it more creative and fun and exciting for our youth and even our teens in that space. Um, there was a young man I met this past week, and he said something. I want you to interact with this. He said that in reference to movies and books, he said if anyone says that a movie is better than a book, they haven't read enough books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that statement there?
You know what? I don't think there is a book that I've ever read that was inferior to the movie that I ever saw.
Mhm.
But I love the idea of the contrast of the two. I
Yeah.
also think, listen, there's one thing that movies and books and television and even video games have in this point have in common, and it's
Mhm.
the power of story. It's
Yeah.
like they're all drenched in story.
Mhm.
And so how you get your story, what vessel that you're introduced to,
Mhm.
because a lot of kids are developed. I mean, video movies and books are now coming from video games and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
And television shows were previously books, and books now become television shows.
Yeah.
And I love that
Mhm.
synergy that's
Mhm.
happening, and it's all drenched around story.
Story.
And
Yeah.
so not only does that give the opportunity for us to visually receive and literacy wise receive
Mhm.
story, it also gives us permission to create our own story.
Story.
And
Yeah.
so that when you see that these things come up, even the new superhero Batman,
Mhm.
sit down with your child and say, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to come up with your own
Mhm.
superhero villain, and a
Mhm.
story in which develops around the two.
Mhm.
And once you're done, we're gonna go get some pizza. Like I
Look
like,
at
or
that.
go get some ice cream. It's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
little incentive, and then
Right.
then you can tell me your story during our
Gotcha.
pizza and ice cream thing. Like this thing is not hard, man.
Yeah.
It's really not. But it's just a matter of valuing its importance and
Mhm.
being creative to introduce it. Because when they have the video games and the movies and the YouTube, the books are just, I mean, I'm keeping it really real. It's not going to be at the forefront, but you
Right.
could make it that way
Yeah.
when you introduce it in a way that's entertaining and
Mhm.
palatable and fun and engaging, especially together as a family. You can watch movies together, play video games together, and you can read
Read
together.
together.
And that
Yeah.
balance and synergy is going to be the main difference on how your children receive literature.
And that's for sure. So now I'm gonna end this on these 2 things. 1, read or else. We gotta talk about that. And then
Yep.
your books that you have. I know you have a series of books. Are the books written as that, as a series so that they can continue reading? Or is it just, like you said before too, just the stories and you're engaging them in stories? So read or else, and then talk about the books and where they can get the books as we wrap up the segment.
So Reader Else came from a concept that I was doing a literacy program in jail to help incarcerated parents
Hmm.
use reading as a tool to communicate with their children by
Mhm.
reading one of my picture books, videoing them, recording them doing it, and then sending that recording along with the book to their child so they can see their parent reading them a story whenever they want. It was
Mhm.
an incredibly powerful program that lasted for about 8 years.
Hmm.
And it was just incredible, and that led me to discover all the connections that go into this jail about illiteracy and how it's directly connected to mass incarceration and teen pregnancy and drug use and crime.
Mhm.
Like, again, these things are directly, not indirectly.
Mhm.
So that's where the read or else comes into play. My books, you could say that they're series, I suppose. There are two financial books with my character Danny Dollar. One is story based, the other one is structurally based,
Mhm.
where it's literally titled "Make Your Own Money," and it's a
Hmm.
guide to teach kids how they can right now, not when they're an adult, right now make their own money.
Mhm.
And so I'm really proud of that series. Collectively, I've sold about 300,000 copies of those books independently.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
yeah, I know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We doing
Yeah.
big things
Hold
around
up.
here.
Hold up. 300,000. Now that speaks to you got to come back on as an entrepreneur, and we got to talk about that venture because you
Um,
sold 300,000 books on your own.
and I will also state there that maybe 2% of those books were sold in bookstores. So, how do you sell over 250,000 copies of your
Mhm.
books without the primary way or the traditional way
Mhm.
of selling them in bookstores? How do you do that?
Mhm.
Catch me next time.
Yeah, I can. That's for sure. That's a great teaser right there because we definitely will have you on to talk about that as an entrepreneur segment because that is powerful in and of itself. Of course, we know components of that is reading, but nonetheless, we definitely want to talk about that journey. So, for all those who are listening and viewing this, send emails to communityvoicephl@gmail.com for any comments, questions, or feedback about this episode and or how you can get in touch with Mr. Jackson and all the great things that he's doing. All that information will be on the show notes, but also be mindful that he will come back with his entrepreneur segment. So just wanted to put that out there because I know some of our viewers and listeners will be emailing me about that particular comment and also some additional information about what you're offering. So listen, man, we are getting close to time, but I am just really, really inspired by how you're handling this advocacy for reading and making sure that it's not just the fun and engaging thing is cool, but what you're doing is you're making it important, right? So talk about that as we wrap up the importance of it, because the fun and the cool stuff that's there. You've done that. But I think the undertone of that is that it's important.
You touched on it, and I will paraphrase, is that you can't be a leader unless you're a reader. Like,
Mhm.
it is really impossible. Even if sports is your thing, if
Mhm.
hip hop is your thing, the prototypical ways that our kids are programmed to think that that's the only way that they can be successful, you still have to read that contract. You
Mhm.
still have to read the tape. You still have to read the things that are going to get you to that next level. So if you think LeBron James isn't studying on a regular basis, or Asia Wilson isn't studying on a regular, like, you're mistaken. Like, literacy is an integral part of their success. It is impossible for you to be a leader unless you are a reader. And we keep beginning the primary thing. It's so joyful. Like
Mhm.
I'm telling you, I'm reading this book right now, and my mind is just exploding with energy and love, and it's the best feeling. And it was alluded to earlier, because reading, it stimulates your mind so much in a way that movies will never ever do. Movies will always show you the images, where reading helps you create,
Yeah.
cultivate your images yourself.
Yeah.
And the greens are always more vibrant in here. The
Yeah.
characters are always much more strange, awesome in here. So it's just it reading is life.
Oh, well, we can end it right there. Reading is life. So, Ty, tell our viewers and listeners, I know we're going to have it on the show notes, tell our viewers and listeners how they can get up with you and how they can continue to support the work that you're doing. And also, by the way, let our viewers know you're not on the East Coast, right? You're on the West Side, right?
I am right now.
Yeah,
I'm about to
right
be
now.
your
Okay.
next door neighbor in the Philly area. I'm about to move back to the Bronx a month
Okay.
from today. So
Okay.
right now I'm in Central California, but I've had enough. I'm an East Coast dude. So I'm ready to come back home to the Bronx. So I'm only a few hours away from Philly town right now. Maybe the next interview can be in person if we can hook it up.
Oh, no doubt. No
And
doubt.
we can get to visiting some of those schools that you talk about. But yeah, I love the West Coast. Don't get me wrong, but Yankees, Bronx, born and
No
raised,
doubt.
baby. Birthplace of hip hop. Hip hop museum coming in 2026.
We
It's
wrap
going down.
We wrapping up, brother. Let me get your contact info to our viewers and listeners before we get into the segment here.
You can find me at TyAllenJackson.com. Search me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. Just search for Ty Allen Jackson. I ain't hard to find.
There you go. And that's all the time we have for this segment of Community Voice. And thank you, Ty, for being on the show. We really appreciate it, man. All the insight and love that you gave and information. We're truly inspired. But remember, always tune in. And if it's happening in your community, we need to hear your voice. Peace, and we are out.